But let's get back into the interview because the destruction of Hakeem Jeffries is only beginning.
But Leader Jeffries, I mean, we know that there are, varying opinions on both sides of the aisle, sharply differing opinions on how to do everything. And you've just outlined a lot of things that Democrats, a lot of problems they have with Republicans. Republicans have a laundry list of things that happened during the Biden administration that they feel the same way about. And I guarantee if they had shut down the government and said, we want a bipartisan talk on doing all this, but what Republicans want, Democrats, their hair would have been on fire. Democrats would have said that's not the way to do it. You can't do it through a government shutdown. And now you're employing that same tactic on what I'm sure you feel are very important issues. But it just looks like, politics as usual to a lot of people.
That's the problem with Democrats. They're so dramatic. They're so self-righteous. They believe everything they stand for is existentially important. They have this sanctimonious attitude where everything they believe in isn't a mere policy debate. It's a life or death issue. They think they're holier than thou, therefore their concerns warrant being addressed immediately and agreed to in totality. The problems they want addressed with healthcare can't be negotiated and hashed out in the period of a week or two, and yet they're shutting down the government until their demands are met. That's because they have no interest in good faith debate or bipartisanship. They want their laundry list of demands to be met via arm twisting, but somehow still don't realize that Donald Trump isn't going to be bullied into giving them $1 trillion for free health care for illegals. They're delusional, and this is a stunt. They're willing to halt functions of the entire federal government, force millions of workers to go without pay, also their radical base don't vote them out of office. But let's watch this next clip where Hakeem tries to explain how the shutdown is the Republicans' fault, and a different host on the panel fires some shots at him.
What is bad precedent is the Republican refusal to engage in bipartisan negotiations. What is bad precedent is the Republicans embarking on a my way or the highway approach from the very beginning of this Congress. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Joe, you're exactly right. So if the government shuts down, they've made the decision to shut the government down. And they can reopen it right now if they chose to, with a rule change in the Senate. But I just explained it. The reality is they want to keep the government closed. Cruelty from the very beginning of this administration has been the point. And the responsible thing to do is to sit down and negotiate a bipartisan path forward to address a very real healthcare crisis that's upon us right now. Open enrollment starts on November 1st.
Can you do that? Can you do those negotiations while the government is reopened? I think that's the offer that's been on the table.
That's the whole point that he and the rest of the Democrats continue to ignore. You're refusing to fund the government for 7 weeks while you deal with all of these negotiations. That's because they're not looking for negotiations. They're looking for Republicans to arbitrarily sign on to a plan to re-implement their radical woke agenda. And he mentioned that Republicans could use the nuclear option, break precedent, and just push this funding through anyway, but the Republicans actually have respect for the norms and aren't trying to erode all of our procedures like the Democrats would. Basically, the Senate Majority Leader, if he wanted to, could overrule Senate precedent that requires 60 votes to pass legislation. But that's traditionally something both parties withhold from doing because it will be used against them when the opposite party takes power. And if Donald Trump was the supposed dictator that the Democrats claim he is, why wouldn't he just instruct the Senate Majority Leader to do that and he could pass all the laws he wants? Once again, Donald Trump proving he's the worst fascist of all time. If Donald Trump was truly a dictator, he wouldn't be worried about the Democrats breaking that precedent when they get back into power, because they would never be getting back into power. And Democrats have already threatened to use the nuclear option to do things like pack the Supreme Court, to give Puerto Rico and DC statehood, cementing a Democrat majority. All kinds of insane, undemocratic things to tip the balance of power in their favor.